There are moments when reality seems to thin, when the ordinary world gives way to something more mysterious. That unexplained shiver down your spine, the keys that weren't where you left them, the familiar scent that appears from nowhere, triggering memories buried deep within you. What if these aren't simply quirks of perception or random neural firings? What if they represent something more profound, attempts at communication from beyond the veil of our limited awareness? Perhaps those we've loved never truly leave us. Perhaps what we call death is merely a transition to another frequency of existence, occasionally harmonizing with our own when conditions align just right. If these words resonate with something deep inside you, if they awaken that quiet knowing you've kept hidden in the chambers of your heart, perhaps you're ready to explore this ancient river of wisdom flowing through the ages. The interactions between dimensions rarely manifest as Hollywood portrays them. No dramatic apparitions or floating objects. True spiritual connections whisper rather than shout, like the gentlest breeze that barely stirs the leaves yet carries the unmistakable fragrance of somewhere else. Often, it's the seemingly insignificant details that slip past our rational minds, but land with perfect precision in our souls. That inexplicable feeling of being watched. The movement caught in your peripheral vision that vanishes when you turn. These experiences aren't imagination playing tricks. Indigenous healers and contemplatives across traditions have always understood that our physical senses capture only a fraction of what's truly perceivable. The American transcendentalists wrote that, "The eye sees only what the mind is prepared to comprehend." Perhaps our hearts comprehend what our minds cannot yet grasp. Our consensus reality, the world we collectively agree exists, is merely the visible tip of an unfathomable cosmic ocean.
Ancient wisdom traditions teach that patterns repeat across all scales of existence. The spiritual signs we encounter are reflections of parallel realities intertwined with our own, manifesting through patterns we can only recognize when we expand our perception beyond mere sight. Have you noticed how meaningful coincidences tend to cluster after losing someone you love? Their favorite song plays at precisely the moment you're thinking of them.
Their birth date appears repeatedly on receipts, clocks, and license plates. A specific type of butterfly or bird appears during your moments of deepest reflection. These synchronicities aren't random chance. They're the language through which consciousness communicates across dimensions. American psychologists studying these phenomena have observed that such meaningful coincidences often defy statistical probability. They're like breadcrumbs leading us through forests of uncertainty toward a profound truth. Nothing that matters is ever truly lost. Consciousness simply shifts its expression. Ancient wisdom keepers across the Americas believed that moments of synchronicity are actually intersections in time, points where different dimensional planes temporarily overlap, allowing brief connections between realms of existence. Dreams aren't merely projections of our subconscious mind. They're gateways. During sleep, our awareness partially releases its attachment to physical reality, enabling more direct communication with the spiritual dimension. It's in those vivid dreams, the ones that linger after waking, that we often experience our most significant encounters with those who've passed beyond. Have you ever dreamed of a departed loved one and felt it was more than a dream, an authentic interaction rather than a mere memory? Did the dream possess a different quality, operating at another frequency, with more vibrant colors or unusual clarity? Native American dream teaching suggests that during sleep, we enter the same intermediate state that souls experience between lives, enabling genuine encounters with those dwelling in other dimensions. In recurring dreams where someone who has passed appears healthy, radiant, and conveying specific messages, we aren't simply processing grief. We're experiencing authentic spiritual encounters. The boundary between worlds becomes more permeable in the dream realm. Early American settlers documented visitation dreams as common spiritual experiences, particularly on the frontier where the wilderness seemed to thin the veil between worlds. Keep a dream journal by your bedside. Record immediately upon waking before your rational mind begins dismissing the impossible elements. In these records, patterns will emerge, messages that transcend what your conscious mind could fabricate on its own. Spirits often manifest through subtle energetic shifts in your environment. That sudden cold spot in a room with consistent temperature. air that inexplicably feels thicker or lighter, electrical fluctuations or lights that flicker without apparent cause. Modern quantum physics is only beginning to understand what spiritual traditions have always known. Consciousness affects matter. Spirits, being pure consciousness freed from dense physical limitations, can more easily influence the electromagnetic field surrounding us. Many people report unexplained goosebumps, tingles, or the distinct sensation of being lightly touched when no one is nearby. Our skin, our largest sensory organ, can detect subtle field variations that our rational mind tends to ignore. These sensations aren't imagination. They're real perceptions of energetic shifts in the vibrational field. Early American frontier literature called these moments thin places, where the membrane between worlds becomes so transparent we can almost see through it. In these moments, consensus reality briefly suspends its rigid rules, allowing other, more fluid principles to manifest. Native American wisdom teaches that each human possesses multiple energy bodies beyond the physical. It's through these subtle bodies that we first sense the presence of spirits, long before any ordinary physical or sensory manifestation. When a spirit approaches, we often experience sudden, unexplained emotional shifts. A profound sadness that emerges from nowhere might indicate we're sensing a spirit still carrying unresolved pain. An inexplicable joy might signal the visit of an elevated soul or spiritual guide. This phenomenon occurs because emotions function as bridges between dimensions. Early American Shaker communities recognized that emotional intelligence transcends dimensional barriers, which is why their spiritual practices centered around cultivating specific emotional states to facilitate communication with higher realms. Tears that spontaneously arise when thinking of someone who has passed aren't merely expressions of longing. They're often responses to that spirit's actual presence beside you. Our soul recognizes what our mind has yet to comprehend. American transcendental philosophers observed that the soul knows before knowledge can arise, a profound truth about our multidimensional perceptive capacity. Spirits often choose moments of emotional vulnerability to make contact, when our rational defenses are more permeable. That inexplicable comfort arising at the peak of sorrow, that quiet certainty that we aren't alone even in our most isolated moments. These are often genuine presences, not merely psychological coping mechanisms. Scents that appear without an apparent source are among the most common signs of spiritual visitation. The characteristic cologne of a loved one, the aroma of specific flowers associated with someone who has passed, the smell of a grandfather's pipe tobacco or a mother's perfume, suddenly emerging in environments where such fragrances couldn't possibly exist. Researchers at American universities studying paranormal perception note that smell is frequently the first sense to detect spiritual presences because it's our most primitive sense and least filtered by the rational neocortex. The olfactory bulb connects directly to the limbic system and hippocampus, brain regions associated with memory and emotion, creating a direct pathway to consciousness that bypasses our skeptical defenses. Unexplained sounds also frequently serve as messengers: the tinkling of a significant object, footsteps in empty hallways, a name whispered from afar, melodies playing softly without any sound source. Native American traditions teach that sounds exist beyond normal human audible spectrum, but in certain expanded states of consciousness, we begin perceiving them. Even taste can serve as a bridge, that distinctive flavor of a dish someone used to prepare, briefly arising in your mouth without apparent reason. Early American Quaker writings described tasting the invisible, a form of direct knowing that transcends ordinary senses. Spirits often manifest through natural elements, feathers repeatedly appearing in your path, specific insects, especially butterflies and dragonflies, behaving unusually around you, birds that seem to follow you or appear in moments of emotional need. Indigenous traditions throughout North America recognize that spirits frequently use the animal kingdom as messengers. This isn't mere superstition. It acknowledges that consciousness isn't limited to human form and can express through multiple vehicles. Localized weather changes can also be signs: that sudden breeze on a windless day touching only you, the sunbeam unexpectedly breaking through clouds at the exact moment of an important inner question, rain that starts or stops precisely at significant moments. Ancient wisdom understands that no real separation exists between consciousness and nature. Spirits, free from physical limitations, can more easily influence natural elements to create signs that our intuition recognizes, even when our rational mind tries to dismiss them as coincidences. When you begin noticing these patterns in nature, you're relearning the ancient language we all knew before modern civilization conditioned us to ignore the constant whisper of the invisible world surrounding us. An increasingly common phenomenon in our modern world is spiritual interference with electronic devices. Phones ringing with no one on the line, televisions or radios turning on by themselves or tuning to specific stations with messages seemingly directed at you, computers displaying meaningful images or texts without human intervention. This phenomenon, known as electronic voice phenomenon, EVP, in American paranormal research, suggests that spirits can manipulate electromagnetic fields to create communications through our devices. The energy required to influence electronic circuits is far less than needed to move physical objects, making technology a more accessible vehicle for spiritual manifestations. Many people report receiving calls from unknown numbers where they intensely feel the presence of a departed loved one, sometimes briefly hearing their voice or simply perceiving a silence laden with meaning before the call drops. Batteries that drain inexplicably during spiritual activity, lights flickering in patterns that seem to respond to verbalized questions. Researchers of subtle energy fields explain that there exists a spiritual physics. Spirits aren't breaking natural laws but operating at a deeper level of these laws, where energy and consciousness reveal themselves as aspects of the same fundamental reality. All these signs aren't merely paranormal curiosities, they're invitations to awakening. Each spiritual visit reminds us that our existence transcends the three-dimensional limitations we've accepted as the totality of reality. When we begin recognizing and validating these experiences, we embark on a journey of consciousness expansion. The boundary between worlds isn't fixed. Its permeability largely depends on our willingness to perceive beyond the five senses and Cartesian logic. The early American philosophical movement of transcendentalism taught that death is merely an initiation into a deeper level of reality perception. Spiritual visits remind us of this perennial truth, that we're never truly separated from those we love, only experiencing different expressions of the same infinite consciousness. Recognizing signs of spiritual presences isn't an end itself, but the beginning of an ongoing dialogue with the mystery surrounding us. It's not merely about confirming consciousness, survival beyond physical death, though that brings profound comfort. It's about rediscovering the multidimensional nature of existence that has always been within reach, waiting only for us to expand our perception. When we begin recognizing the subtle signs of spirits around us, a profound transformation occurs, not just in our understanding of death but in our experience of life. Awareness of continuity dissolves artificial barriers between worlds, revealing the truth that American spiritualists have always known. Separation is illusory. Grief transforms from a pain of permanent loss to a temporary longing, like waiting for a traveler to return from a distant journey. Anxiety about our own mortality dissolves into experiential understanding that consciousness isn't limited to the physical body. Fears transform into curiosity and reverence for the great mystery we'll all eventually explore. Perhaps the greatest gift of these spiritual visits is the profound certainty that bonds of love transcend dimensional barriers, that what truly matters is never lost. As the deepest spiritual traditions throughout the American landscape have always taught, we only truly love when we understand that love knows no death. You aren't imagining it. You aren't projecting. That inexplicable warmth in your chest, that name whispered on the breeze, that vivid dream that seemed more real than waking. These are golden threads weaving the great tapestry of existence, connecting all souls across dimensions of being. Which of these truths have you felt without knowing? What unexplained experience remains etched in your memory, waiting only to be recognized for what it truly is? Each account forms a piece of the cosmic puzzle, each voice a testimony to the infinite continuity of consciousness.